also, what I like to tell students is to look at the employers who are going to be there before attending the career fair. So that way they have time to check out their websites, do a little bit of research about the employers, and even check out employers maybe that they're not familiar with, people that are employers that they haven't heard of before. Because, you know, if you take the time to research those employers, maybe you'll find one that speaks to you a little bit that you hadn't thought of before. Looking at their websites, looking for press releases, anything in the media about the company, and then looking on their website for, you know, open positions, reading over those job posting descriptions so that they can be prepared at the career fair. And then also looking for mission, vision, value statements as well to kind of see what resonates with them when they go to approach an employer at a career fair.
Such as, I think it's really important for students to obtain the list of employers coming to the fair in the first place, as well as look at the job opportunities that they have open within their company. I think this helps the students, you know, feel more comfortable how they're going to navigate the fair in itself, but also be prepared to ask, you know, very focused, specific questions about the employers attending.
Identify the ones that are in your field of study, not necessarily all the employers. You know, pick out the ones that are kind of relevant to what you went to college for or what you want to do when you graduate, and do a little bit of research on them and see what they're maybe hiring for. Another kind of quick hint is, you know, maybe look at their recruiting team and get an idea who might be coming from that particular company to to the campus. So you know a little bit more about them before they get here. They might be an alum of the university. So then you're somewhat more prepared as to, oh, I saw you went to school here. You know, what did you think about it and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of knowing who's coming and what they're maybe hiring for.
So I think with the job fair, a lot of it is doing some research beforehand, knowing what you bring to the table and knowing what companies you may want to work for, and then actually approaching them. I don't think you should necessarily go in there without a plan. I know when I was going to job fairs, I would go in without a plan, and I would just kind of go from table to table, whereas looking back, if I could have looked at all of the jobs that are out there and all of the companies that are doing a lot of good things, I could have matched what I bring to the table with a company that needs that and not just blindly applying places. So I think preparation is really key going into the first job fair.
Preparing for a job fair. So I would always suggest do a little bit of research on whatever organization or company that it is you're looking to become a part of, right, or obtain a job. One thing I see a lot of times is I'll have students come up to me in the job fair and they're like, hey, what do you all do? And I would say that's a bad question to ask, right? So it's just not a good first impression. I'm always impressed, or I would say recruiters, when you can tell me a little bit about my company. It shows that you've done some research. You know, you've honed into, you know, what your interest is, right, or your choice of a career. So I would definitely say do some research.
It's super important when students navigate a job fair to have done their research prior to approaching an employer. It's okay to go up and say, you know, I'm not as familiar with your brand, but I did a little bit of research and here's what I found interesting. Can you tell me more? But I would say don't, you know, approach their booth and say, you know, I've never heard of you before. Who are you? That's something that you definitely don't want to approach an employer with. But what they can do is definitely prepare an elevator speech. You know, keep it to 30 seconds, talk about yourself, your major, what you're interested in, and if you can relate it back to a position that you've seen with that employer on their website or, you know, any involvement in the community or a press release, some news about that employer, their mission, vision, value statement, what kind of hits home for them. Engage the employer at that booth, you know, and make that personal connection. That's something that will also help the students stand out as well.
Don't go up to a recruiter or an employer and say, what are you guys about? What do you do? That's part of the do where you do your research. Don't just set your resume down and walk away. That's just going to get discarded and it's a waste of time.
So the first thing, and this is something I noticed at a lot of job fairs, is don't be afraid to break away. You know, I see a lot of students where they'll come in big clusters of 5 or 6 students because it's more comfortable for them. But if there's just one of you and you're approaching me to have a conversation, that's going to go a lot better than like 5 people hanging out, because I feel like I need to talk to this person, whereas they may not even be looking, but now they're cutting into your time because now I'm focused on, talking to everyone, engaging everyone in the group. And also, to me, it shows confidence. So don't be afraid to go by yourself, or at least break away for 30 minutes and then come back together and just kind of talk about what you did. But I think the approach is key, doing it on your own. And I just think going back to the whole pre-planning I was talking about, knowing where you want to go beforehand and approaching that. There's nothing wrong with going to a company and getting more information about them. But if I see you going booth to booth to booth to booth, then I'm like, okay, they may not have a plan, or they are just kind of putting their foot in the waters, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking to seriously start your career, then I would like you to know what you bring to the table and what you're looking to do in the future. So just take some time, reflect beforehand, be confident. Don't just go to every table, and don't just cluster with your friends. Be bold and just be ready to take that next step, because it definitely takes an element of boldness. But I think that those candidates set themselves apart over the ones who are just kind of standing around or not sure where to go. So that's what I look for.
Navigating the job fair. So I would, let's just start with some don'ts, right? Never go to a job fair with a group of individuals, right? Everyone has friends. I have a ton of them. My wife hates that. Everywhere we go, we see someone I know. I play football here at Carroll. And being a part of a sport, you're so used to being with other individuals and, go team. When it comes to your future and your career, you don't really want to have a lot of people tag along with you. And whatever you do prior to a job fair, totally up to you. But I would definitely suggest, don't come in packs.
A lot of students always ask, and how do I stand out, more than anyone else? And again, it's not that we're looking for the person with the brightest tie or the nicest suit when they show up. We know they're college students, right? We're not looking for the best dressed student. It's, students that come to our table, we love when they come and they know where we were located. They maybe looked at the map ahead of time and saw where our table was, where the skylight table is. So they came looking for us, as opposed to going table to table, like kind of table hopping. And it's almost like you're there just because you're just going through a transaction of handing your resume out. Whereas if you've come prepared, you know who you want to go see and you know where they're located at. I think employers in general love that you have actually searched them out rather than them searching you out. And you have to put a little bit of effort into it. It doesn't take that much time. You look at a map and find out, here's the 5 companies I want to meet, here's where they're located, and here's where I'm going first.
I think it's important that students take a look at their resumes and make sure they're up to date, and make sure that the skills that they're looking for in the jobs that are opening reflect that in the resumes itself. It's okay to have multiple resumes, I believe, just because you might be after different job opportunities. So tailor your resumes to the job openings that are out there, and come prepared with copies. Even though you might in your head say you're going to go and talk to 10 employers, I think it's important to always shoot for double the amount that you're going to be prepared for. I think it's important that you have that direct eye contact, have a firm handshake, and smile. I think those are key successes to right off the bat to, make sure that the conversation is genuine, but also be more personable in your interactions with the employers.
Planning a lot, because I think planning ahead is key to doing well in a career fair. But really, I think that to stand out from the crowd, it's, first of all, don't be afraid to be bold and go out by yourself. It's your job, and your friends aren't going to be there doing the job with you. It's your future. So first step is to literally distance yourself from other people to stand out from the crowd. Don't just be part of the crowd.
So one thing I would say, and it's I don't know if this will be a real response to you, but use car stock for your resume, right? Use car stock for your resume. Another thing, another way you can stand out is having a story. I know that you do a great job here with elevator speeches and pitches. Just have a sound elevator pitch. I want to know who you are. Something has to stand out about you. So when I leave that job fair, I'm like, wow, that individual really impressed me. Or I've seen probably 300 people today, but I can just remember this one individual because of a story.
utilize business cards. So once you're at the booth, it's totally okay to ask a recruiter for a business card. And some carry generic career fair cards with just company information or maybe a general careers inbox. So it's a great way for students to follow up even with the company or recruiters on a team that way. Some recruiters will give out a personal business card, so that's a great way to make a personal connection. But then of course too, there's always LinkedIn. I would always encourage students or anyone who's looking for an opportunity to have a LinkedIn profile. Fill it out to the best of your ability. Definitely highlight your skills, play them up, but don't over highlight your skills. If you have to be honest about it, especially if you get a phone call for an interview or something, you don't want to put something on there that you're maybe only not as familiar with as your LinkedIn profile says. So you don't want to overplay things. But
I think it's best to ask them what's the best way to follow up, because they've got so many different things going on. They've met with so many different individuals. So I think it's important if you know their form of communication. But it's important in those follow-ups to highlight the conversations you guys talked about, show your interest again. Something that pops out, whether it's a statement about your skill set or even just a common conversation you guys had, whether it was something on a personal level, that helps the recruiters to remind themselves of who they were talking to at the fair.
I think a lot of John Carroll students I've taught to know I love thank you cards. I think they're the easiest thing to do because it takes a minute to write a card, but it's also the hardest thing because who has thank you cards sitting around. So it's I love when I get a personal note from someone. It shows they've actually taken. Getting an email is one thing. It's easy to send off. We can send off emails anytime we want, but actually taking out a piece of paper and writing down a note and a couple of sentences, nothing crazy, not a resume, but just like, hey, Mark, it was great to meet you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Simple. Those are always great.
You can actually connect with a recruiter multiple ways. One way you can connect, always ask for a business card if they haven't already given you one. If you want to go above and beyond and actually take the time and create you some business cards, you can definitely do that. Following up, I would say if a recruiter has a LinkedIn, you can always reach out on LinkedIn, send them a request. You can always follow with an email. So that's a little bit more professional. Just say, hey, I thank you for your time. I'm very interested in the opportunity that your company offers. I would love to stay in contact with you. So that's a huge follow-up. You want to stay away from texting. If a recruiter has a cell phone on a business card, you want to definitely shy away from that. You don't want to do too much calling. As a recruiter, you'll find that you don't have a lot of time to do a lot of things. So just a courtesy email to say, hey, I enjoyed our conversation. I am very interested in your company.
I know students always get nervous. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't necessarily know what to say. Sometimes they get tongue-tied. But I like to tell students that they are, the captain of their own ship, essentially. So they know their own story better than anyone else. So I tell them to own it. So when you're approaching an employer, just be confident in yourself. You know what your major is. You know why you're interested in it. You know what you're looking for. And even if you don't necessarily know what you're looking for, it's okay to say that too. And just have those conversations with employers to kind of get a better sense of what you are looking for, what you might be interested in. There are some career paths where students tend to just fall into them, and it's the result of talking to someone at a career fair. So just having that sense of confidence, or even just faking it to make it sometimes if you have to, because the brain is so fantastic in that if you tell yourself something enough, you will end up believing it too, and you will exude that onto the rest of the world too.
Did you come prepared for this career fair? Are you here just because your professor said, go there and collect some business cards and we'll talk about it tomorrow in class? Or did you truly put an effort in and did your research on maybe the industry you're looking to get hired into, the companies from that industry that are there, and have you done research on that? I love when people come to us and they know about our community involvement, for example, or the fact we have quite a strong John Carroll alumni base in our firm. So when students come and tell us that, I know they've actually gone onto our website or done something to maybe read our LinkedIn profiles. Yeah, it may have taken them 5 or 10 minutes, but they've put that little effort in, rather than when a student comes up and says, well, tell me more about your company. That's not what we're there for. We're expecting you to have done that before. That's the homework part. I could talk about Skylight all day long, but I'm at a career fair for 2 or 3 hours, trying to meet as many great candidates as possible. For us to talk about our story, that's not what we're there for. We want to hear your story as a student, and why should we hire you? Why should we even interview you? So being prepared it doesn't take a lot of work. Going online, looking at biographies, looking at the firm's mission statement, what they're about, looking at their social media to see if there's any particular events they've been involved in recently. Maybe it might have been a charity event. Just knowing a little bit about them. You don't have to know the whole A to Z of the company, but some bullet points that you can actually lead a conversation with. Being prepared ahead of time. And, it's kind of, knowing you've done your background research on who's going to be there. And then, when you get in there, you're able to present yourself and your quick, 1 minute, 2 minute story as to who you are. And then just having patience afterwards, kind of as to, don't feel you got to bug the employers. Did you get my resume? Do you still have it? Just trust the process of what we go through. You got to understand we're looking at sometimes, several hundred resumes in a week. So just kind of be prepared ahead of time, be able to present yourself, and then be patient afterwards, just in terms of our follow-up as well.
So I think that really it comes down to knowing who you are and what you bring to the table. It's easier said than done, which it's kind of hard to tell each person like, hey, figure out who you are, because it's not easy going into a job fair, and I understand that. But what I would like to see is, okay, I had this internship in the past, or I did this in the past. I enjoyed that element of this, but I'm looking more to do this with my future.
Just know who you are, right? Just knowing that you're great, that you're great already. One thing I would say that helps me to be confident, I would say people perish for a lack of a vision. So always keep a vision. I have this vision that I want to get to in my life, and in that vision there's vision mapping. So I have to map out how I'm going to obtain my vision, right? So I have do's and don'ts that I do in my life, and do's that I do in my life, and don'ts that I won't do in my life, right? But in that, I'm thinking greatness. Hey, the vision I'm looking to obtain, it's to be great, right? And I'm already great, but I'm just pursuing the greatness, if that makes sense. I'm already great. So when I go into these job fairs, and, I'm a college student, I'm in my senior year, I know that I'm a product of Bowler, right? So you think about companies that put out great products. Apple, Volvo, Honda, right? These particular industries, they put out great products. And I know, you as a student, you're a product of Bowler.